Well, hi, and good afternoon. Welcome to the opening lecture in the ZSI Library lecture series. And I'm delighted to be a part of that as the director of the Seacrest Artist Series here on campus. And because we are presenting a jazz group tomorrow evening, the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra, I'm just very appreciative that the library folks said, well, sure. So let's find an expert to talk about jazz. So right here on campus, we have our very own Matt Kendrick, who's going to talk to us a little bit about jazz as an art form, as a distinctly American kind of music. But not, and you know, one of the interesting things I really enjoy about working at Wake Forest is that in so many little nooks and crannies of the university are interesting people doing really interesting things, and Matt is one of them. And I've always thought he was kind of a quiet, interesting fellow coming in and out of the music department down in the basement where the practice rooms are, and that's where his bass is, and he comes in and out and carrying this big instrument. But I had no idea how hefty his resume was until I asked for it officially. So I'm going to tell you some of the things that are on here. So first of all, he's a native of Winston-Salem, and he went to the School of the Arts and studied European classical bass. Then he went to the University of Tennessee and studied with a jazz educator, and he studied with David McHugh at our School of the Arts in film scoring. He also teaches. He's taught at Renova House in their new Portals of Discovery program. He teaches at the John Coltrane Jazz Camp in High Point. And he works with kids from 6th through 12th grade. He's been here at Wake Forest since 1997, teaching electric bass and jazz improvisation. I don't know how you teach improvisation. That must be really interesting.
Just let him do it.
He also teaches privately. He's been a band leader for over 20 years. He has 17 items on his discography, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's very selective.
That's a selected. Okay, that's a short list.
That's
a short list. He's been recognized for his work in jazz. He's gotten an Arts and Education grant, Jazz Composers Fellowship from the North Carolina Arts Council. He's been on the North Carolina Touring Roster for the Arts Council, an Emerging Artist Fellowship, Meet the Composer, Jazz Composers. I mean, I told you, this is pretty hefty. He's also got a long list of jazz folks that you would recognize that he has worked with. And he's also had some film scores that he has composed that have won some prizes. One of them won a prize at the Sundance Festival. So he's got some street cred here when it comes to jazz. And his lovely wife Karen is with him this afternoon on the keyboard. So that's all about Matt. So let me put a PS to all of the comments that I have just said and remind you that the Seacrest event is tomorrow night at 7:30 in the chapel. If you're faculty and staff, I happen to bring along some tickets for faculty and staff if you haven't gotten yours yet, so see me afterwards. We're also helping the New Orleans Public Library rebuild after Hurricane Katrina. They have a major effort called the Library Rebuilding Project, and Irvin Mayfield, who leads this group tomorrow night, is the honorary chair of that group. And our very own Craig Fansler, when I called him earlier and said, we're going to offer people an opportunity to make a donation at this conference, at the concert tomorrow night. So in your program, you're going to find an offering envelope. And if you choose, you can put something in this envelope, and it will go right in this box in the lobby of the chapel. So not only is this box going to be here tomorrow night, but you may have seen it up on the window on Wake Forest. The people in New Orleans like the box so much that now we're going to have boxes like this all over New Orleans, and you can ask Craig for the details on that. How did that happen? So anyway, thank you all for coming, and I'm just going to turn it over to Ben.
Thank you, Lillian. Thank you very much. It's good to be here today. Let me introduce the people playing with me today on the vocals. Is Diana Tuffin. And Diana, we do a lot of things in conjunction with Green Street Church, and we've been doing this, I'll tell you a little bit later about some of the things we've been doing with this program. And this is Karen Kendrick on piano. And she plays around in different parties and clubs and what have you, where they need pianists. Okay, today's program, The Creators of Jazz, is a program that I designed, put together with a grant from the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Arts Council that was funded through an arts and education grant. And I was inspired, and the program is actually for kids, like elementary school, middle school, and even high school. And I was inspired to put this program together when I saw a documentary called A Girl Like Me by Kira Davis. She put together it's a 7-minute documentary, and she said, about her documentary, she said, I also decided to reconduct the doll test, initially conducted by Dr. Kenneth Clark, which was used in the historic desegregation case, Brown versus Board of Education. I thought that by including this experiment in my film, I would shed new light on how society affects black children today and how little has actually changed. Kira Davis. So I watched this thing, and I'm looking at it, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with the doll test, but I'm not going to go into it. But I was like, well, man, it's 50 years later, man. It's the same old. So I said, well, what can I do? So I said, well, I'm just going to do something on jazz, because that's what I love and that's what I do. And so I chose 5 musicians who I thought affected jazz through the years. Their voice and their contribution to the music probably had more to do with changing the vernacular or adding to the language than any others. You could arguably say this list is a lot longer, and it is. But I thought that these 5 men were were some of the most influential in the music. And there they are up there: Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, and John Coltrane. So jazz is an international music. People somewhere, everywhere, somebody's into it and play it. Even if it's one guy out there in some jungle somewhere, it's probably somebody out there in the bird. And it's funny how people really get into it here. And it always amazes me. It's like this little island of intelligence and reason and rationality. It's a gift to humanity, and it's a music of freedom and self-expression. So Louis Armstrong. Those were his nicknames: Pops, Satchmo, Louis. Incredible entertainer, trumpet player from New Orleans. He was in the lineage of great trumpet players, starting with, say, Buddy Bolden, and then Joe King Oliver, who he was his, pretty much like his mentor. And he, pretty much conquered show business. He was the biggest thing. He was a great star. I have these pictures here. Usually I have somebody running this thing for me, so I'm going to try to do this all at once. But this is a picture of him in Africa, where they went to the Belgian Congo. They were having a war. This was a story related by John Faddis, a great jazz trumpet player, to the Belgian Congo, and they were having a civil war. And when he got there, the factions that were at war said, okay, wait, stop. Hold the war. We're going to see Louis. And they did. That's a great testament. Something right there. And these are just pictures. I usually have them going while we're playing a tune by him. So he was on the cover of Time, cover of Life. He was a statesman. He didn't take a lot of stuff lying down either. Some people like Dizzy, sort of Dizzy Gillespie, kind of another great jazz trumpet player, kind of, when Dizzy was young, he sort of criticized him, saying that he was kind of just like, well, he's Dizzy called him Uncle Tom, but it's not true. I mean, when Faubus was trying to block the desegregation in Arkansas, Louis came out and said to the press, much to his management's dismay, the president has no guts and he's two-faced. And he said, and I believe it was after the Selma March by Dr. Martin Luther King, he refused a trip to the Soviet Union. He said, the hell with the government. And he said that in the press. And that was a big step for somebody in entertainment, that you're putting your whole thing on the line there. So he was a great man. And an incredible musician. I love him. So let's play one by him. What y'all say? Stop talking. Here's What a Wonderful World.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed days and dark sacred nights. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. When I see the colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, all reflected in the faces of the people passing by. When I see friends shaking hands, friends saying, how do you do? All those friends are saying is I love you. I hear babies when they cry, and I watch them grow. They will learn much more than I will ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful, wonderful world. When I see the colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, and they're also in the faces of all the people passing by. Whenever I see friends shaking hands, friends saying, well, how do you do? All they're really saying is, friend, I love you. I hear babies when they cry, I watch them grow. They will learn much more than you and I will ever, 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 ever know.
ton of tunes. He wrote one of his most famous tunes, but we were talking about this the other day, in a sentimental mood in a nightclub on a break. So we did a tune while we write and hear people playing, 60 years later. And it's a great tune. He was that kind of guy, though. Stravinsky, they could sit there and write music and hear play this, and it's like, wow, it's kind of hard to take. But he wrote, many songs and many big works too, like some masses for the big orchestras and with his band. One of his greatest talents as a composer, I always felt, he was just really an incredible composer, however you want to put it. But I always liked the way, let me rephrase it, I liked the way that he took individual musicians and used them in context of their abilities within the sound of his orchestra. And he was great at that. He would utilize Johnny Hodges or Bubba Miley. Johnny Hodges, the alto saxophone player, Bubba Miley, the great trumpet player, Juan Tizal, or whatever he had, he would pull the best out of these people. He was a very suave, sophisticated, debonair, very elegant. He was just known as a gentleman's gentleman. And just really an inspiring human being. Find my little, he won this list of stuff. President Lyndon Johnson presented Duke Ellington with the President's Gold Medal in '66. Nixon gave him the Medal of Freedom in '69. 13 Grammys, Pulitzer Prize. He won the French Foreign Legion. He had a stamp, which I have. In his 50-year career, he played over 20,000 performances in Europe, Latin America, the Middle East, as well as Asia. He played all over Earth with the big band. And I just really respect him as an orchestrator, a composer, a humanitarian, a person that knew how to deal with people. There's a story, there's a lot of good stories with him. Let me find this. Go through these pictures a little bit. Born in D.C. Time. Remember, this was for kids. I would have a kid running it, so I'm multitasking. I'm not doing this. This record, particular record here, they did this Duke Ellington, Charlie Mingus, and Max Roach. And during the session, Mingus was kind of fiery. If you don't know Charles Mingus, but he would have had a tendency to fall off the handle here and there a lot. But he got so upset. Mingus was a great composer and writer. He could have been on this list too, but I don't think he was quite as influential as some of these other guys. But he got so upset. He was intimidated by Duke Ellington. He was in awe of Duke Ellington. He was just like, oh my God, Duke Ellington. You could tell in his writings, but he loved Duke Ellington. And at this session, he got really upset and packed his bass up, was storming off, because he didn't feel like he was good enough or something. And Duke stopped him at the door and calmed him down. Got him to go back. I wish I could remember this quote, but got him to go back and finish the session. Another time, early on in his career, Mingus was in Duke's band, and something happened with Juan Tizal, the trumpet. Was it trumpet player? Trombone, yeah. And but I think he pulled a knife on Tizal. That's what Mingus said. And he got furious. He ran off stage, ran backstage and got a fire axe. He was chasing Tizal all over the hall with a fire axe. Duke had to let him go after that. Colorful personalities. I'm going to let Diana introduce the next tune that we're going to do. We're going to do signature songs.
The song we're going to do is Take the A Train. As well received as Duke Ellington was all throughout the world, there were times he was not quite so well received in certain portions of this country at a certain time. Black and white musicians, of course, could not reside in the same hotels. They couldn't travel together, in certain public transportation systems.
Jim Crow.
Yeah, that's how it was then, and hopefully it's somewhat different now. Time to tell. But when he wrote the song Take the A Train, I think it's got a cool duality in title, in that he had his own Pullman porter car, because if they couldn't travel together on public transportation, he'd fine. figured he'd work their way around that. They'd all load up in this car and hook it up where they could and run around the United States and perform at various venues. So while this is a signature tune, Take the A Train, in which Billy Strayhorn, one of his compatriots, was very highly instrumental. This refers to an express service that would run through New York City, and it would go up to Sugar Hill, which was an elite area of Harlem at that time. So we hope you will enjoy Take the A Train.
Another point you made that was that they had to train, and so if they had to go to a hotel and there was any kind of Jim Crow, they didn't have to deal with it. They had this great, spacious train.
I don't know how spacious it was to get a bunch of guys and a whole lot of
Good old big bands. Still trying to go.
They were on the train, so let's roll. A Train.
All aboard! You must take the A train to get to Seville, way up in Harlem. Oh yes, you must take the A train if you want to get to Sugar Hill, way up in Harlem. Hurry, hear that diesel humming, yeah. You better hurry, hurry. I think I hear the track is humming. You must take the A train if you want to get to Sugar Hill. Well, you must take the A train if you want to get to Sugar Hill, way up in Harlem. Oh, you must take the A train if you want to find the fastest way to get to Sugar Hill, way up in Harlem. Gotta hurry, 'cause I hear it coming. Hurry, do you hear that diesel? Get your ticket, think the train's coming, and you must take the A train if you want to get to Sugar Hill, way up in Harlem.
Charlie Parker, alto, he only lived to be 35. I guess that's one of the things that, but in those 35 years, man, oh man, he was just a burning alto saxophone player. And the language and the way that he used rhythm and space and harmony and everything was completely revolutionary. He messed people's minds up completely, musicians. And they're still messed up. How does he do that? You know, so they have books of his solos, the Omni book. It's like a whole book of all his solos. And I use them all the time. It's a great way to learn jazz, just learn how to swing some. You just start playing that stuff and you can't help it if you can actually play it. Even if you play it slow, it's still hip. So it's real hip. So Bird, he had a lot of problems and a lot of drug problems, terrible drug problems, and they killed him along with drinking and whatever. And the stories just go on and on about his, that's the page of that. And his nickname Bird, I guess he liked chicken, but I always thought, there's all these stories about chicken and this and that. In fact, my buddy Al Neese lives in Greensboro. He's in his mid-70s, and he lived in New York during the 50s and 60s. And he knew Bird because he would come over to Al's house and get Shirley, his wife, to fry him some chicken. They're from down here, and she knew how to fry chicken. And he said Bird would come over and get some chicken and stuff, and then he done it. When he plays it, you listen to the way he phrases. He sounds like sort of a bird twittering around. I think that's part of it too. There's all kinds of bird stories, and you really need to listen to some. Go here, listen to some Charlie Parker, and if you play an instrument, to listen to something, then try to play it. Then come talk to me. And that's all I really have to say for him. It was just the way he played the horn, the way he phrased, and the language that he produced when he played was just completely revolutionary. And they say he created bebop along with Dizzy Gillespie and Thelonious Monk and Kenny Clark and Ray Brown up in Mint's Playhouse. And he did. I mean, Dizzy did that too, and he was part of it. But I just feel like Bird was really just the fulcrum. He was the focal point. He was the man. So Charlie Parker, born in Kansas City, and played around down there. There's a story that he went to sit in with, I don't know who it was, and he couldn't play the tune in whatever key they were trying to play it in. And it's in the movie, and the drummer took a cymbal and threw it on the stage and made him get off. He was real embarrassed when I practiced 12 hours a day for 5 years. Some kind of myth, but he ended up being bad. And there, in Miles Davis' biography, the last one, Troupé, the first half of that book is hysterical. I mean, because he goes through all the escapades with Bird and everything, and it's just great reading. It's not really, it's a little bit colorful. But it's really something. So we're going to do one now that he made famous. There's a scene in the movie, Bird, where he comes up and he's all messed up, and he's out in the street at Dizzy's house screaming, "Hey, dude, I got a little time, and he's screaming this song. So, now's the time. That sounds good.
That's good.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Jefferson, a great vocalese artist, and he composed a lot of lyrics to jazz standards that originally didn't have them. Here's what he did for Now Is the Time.
I never thought you'd be so awfully close to me until I heard the message that after set me free. That made me wanna linger, wanna hang around, and better understand all these new jazz kinds of sounds. Back in 42, Bird came to New York and he blew. Come reminisce with me. Things you've seen about him, all these things you heard, I know it will amaze you. But get you down inside to think of how the way he lived and how the man died. Back in 42, Bird came to New York and he lived.
Now it's time for Miles. He really ended up almost like a pop star. Born in Alton, Illinois. Actually grew up in East St. Louis. His father was a dentist. It's pretty well to do. He had a pony when he was a kid and everything. He says his dad had to take out his trumpet because his mother hated the sound of it. That sums it up. But he consistently reinvent himself. He was really concerned with what was going on around him, I think, in the world to some degree. But it seemed to me, I can't really say, but he did reinvent himself. He came up with the blues, like Jay McShann. Well, actually, he went to Juilliard. That's right, he went to Juilliard when he was a young boy. He got finished down in Alton and started hanging out with Bird, and that's tales in his book, and started learning how to play bebop. He was quite good. He wasn't like Dizzy, didn't have like the power or like Clifford Brown or something, but he could definitely play, and he had a lot going on harmonically in his own world of sound that he created. And his first bands were like with sort of more some fantasy and prestige. It was more like Straight Ahead, kind of defined Straight Ahead. And then when it came to time for this record here, Kind of Blue, this is when he really became famous. He started what they call Cool. And there was actually an album before this called Birth of the Cool, which was a large 9 people, had French horn, tuba, and Gunther Schuller played French horn on it. I think Jerry Mulligan did some arrangements. It's a great record, Birth of the Cool. And it's just this really nice sort of large group, really harmonized, really interesting stuff. Go listen to these records, Birth of the Cool. And the Kind of Blue really put him on the map. This was, I would say, the advent of cool jazz. And it's just so sublime, and it's just really cool, and it's really just like, whoa. This is really a different, total, not like bebop. Bebop's like this fast stuff in your face with flying. It's great. This was a new thing. Birth of the cool jazz, Miles Davis. So Kind of Blue, and this was with John Coltrane and Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb and Wynton Kelly. Bill Evans actually was on this. Bill Evans, the piano player, was on this record. And then he messed around in this context. He did a few more records that were kind of like this, still doing some standards. And then he got the great group together with Ron Carter, Tony Williams, Herbie Hancock, and Wayne Shorter, which people say arguably is one of the best jazz quintets in history. And they produced phenomenal music. People were still raving over. And then he got and that slowly moved away and started getting rock started having an influence on him. I think there was plans for him to make a record with Jimi Hendrix, but Jimmy died. And he started getting really funk grooves and more R&B kind of stuff. He had a Motown bass player and the French Jimi Hendrix. This French guy, I forget his name. They made these crazy records, but so they had all this like really this rock crazy stuff going on. Started with the they like to say that it started with Bitches Brew, which I believe was 71. 61, late 60s, something like that. Before that was In a Silent Way. Anyway, he's got a really interesting history. And I can sit here and talk to you about it, but you have to go hear it. So, In a Silent Way, Bitches Brew, go listen. And so, then after that, he did a few more things. He did a Gotha, which really got crazy. It's still getting more and more out. It's just like, he was wearing like green spandex suits and giant sunglasses. And he'd come out and play organ. It's just like nuts. And so then he went into seclusion and came out again with another record called The Man with the Horn, and continued on out until his death. He did remakes of pop tunes and kept doing his thing. I went and saw him, and he was doing all that stuff. He'd have all this stuff going on stage, and then I just sat there and listened to him, and it was like I was listening to Kind of Blue, or Bye Bye Blackbird, or anything. There he is, this mom, he's doing his thing, man. It didn't matter what they were doing. It's beautiful. So he is a great person. If you're learning how, when I teach my class, I use him a lot because his stuff, it was very powerful, just the way he could put together 3, 4 notes. And if you can learn like 3 or 4 of those notes and put it in your play, and you can draw from that. We're going to do one by him called All Blues.
The sea, the sky, you and I. You and I.
one more to go. It's John Coltrane. Coltrane was really influential, really spiritual, incredible tenor saxophone, piano saxophone player. He grew up in High Point, North Carolina. His house is still there. I teach the jazz, John Coltrane Jazz Workshop in the summer. That the city of High Point has finally decided that Coltrane is an asset to their town. There's his house. They bought that too. It still looks like that. That's where he grew up. It's right over there on Underhill Street, right next to Williamson High School. That's actually downtown now. Oh, a nice statue. There he is. He started with the blues bands, Eddie Klingon and Princeton, and then he had a lot of drug problems also, hence his early death. I believe it was 45, so I can't do the math. He was young, 40, was it 37? 30s? No, 47. He was in his 40s. Died in 1967. But he had a lot of dope problems and drank too much. But then he played on a lot of records, did a lot of really good work while he was messed up for Fantasy and Prestige. And he finally cleaned his act up. He sort of went upstairs one day and said, "That's it." Told his wife and went upstairs and did it. Kicked it, came downstairs and said, "Okay." And then he started. And my God, it was like, and what was it, 10 years or less? He just put all this whole huge body of work on Impulse Records. Love Supreme and Giant Steps, and my favorite thing, and just all this stuff. And he was so spiritual, and the way he approached the music was so spiritual that he really has a huge impact on a lot of people. Just from the way, I think it's just the aura that he exuded or exudes from his music. It gives you a good feeling somewhere, and people are drawn to it, especially tenor saxophone players. But he played a lot of notes, and he would play these sheets of sound. They were called, I'm not going to go into too much depth, we're running out of time. But he did a record called Love Supreme, which is one of my favorites. And that was another one he went upstairs. He went upstairs for a couple of days, didn't eat. I think he drank some water, and came downstairs, and the whole family was like, "What's going on?" He comes down, and I got it. And it's a beautiful, incredible piece of music, Love Supreme, which I suggest. John Coltrane, very influential voice in jazz. And now we're going to do one that he did on, let's see what record it was. It was called the John Coltrane Quartet Plays. It's called Nature Boy.
There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far, over land and sea. A little shy, a strange of eye, but so very wise, so wise was he. And then one day, one lucky day he passed my way, and as we talked of many things, of fools and of kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing loved in return. And then one day, one happy day passed my way. And as we talked of so many, many things, we talked of fools, we talked of kings. This he said to me. He said the greatest thing you could ever learn is to live, to love and be loved. Every time.
Does anyone have a question or a comment? Lillian, Anna, Matt, Karen, thank you so much. This is just a treat. We really appreciate it. Thank you.